Good morning, everyone. This is the December 16th, 2022 meeting of the Nantucket Historical Commission. I'm just going to check in with everyone and see who's here. David Silver had called and said he would join a little bit later, so I know he's not going to be right in this group now, but we have, looks like Mickey Rowland
here,
and Abby Demolitis.
I'm here.
Morning. Tom Montgomery.
Here.
And our people are all over the place. We've got Clement Darkis.
Here. Yeah, I'm here.
Good morning.
Morning.
Georgia Raceman.
Here.
Hi. And we've got a number of guests. Thank you all for joining. I see Rita Carr and Melissa Andre. Hi, thank you so much for joining. We look forward to your discussion. And I think, and then staff Holly Backus.
Good morning.
Thank you so much. Hillary, thank you for joining. I think that's all of us. So let's go ahead and begin. We can start with public comment. Does anyone have any comments from the public?
Mr. Chair, David Iverson has his hand up. Hey, David.
I don't have a full screen, so thank you for letting me know, Holly. Please go ahead, David, and welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm just calling in to just give you guys an observation and maybe just a heads up of some concerns. I'm just concerned about how much time you guys are spending on the HDC subcommittees, and I just I would urge you guys to put it aside. I think you've made your statement, you've written a letter, and after all, this is the HDC's fight. So I really am concerned about your commission as a whole and its relevance if you continue down this road. So I just urge you guys to keep up the good work that you're doing with preservation and remain in your lane. And this isn't meant to be a derogatory remark as much as just an observation and a concern. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you for voicing that opinion, David. Preservation is our biggest concern, and the HDC has the greatest impact on that, and the advisory boards have quite an effect on the HDC and the process. And so that's why we are committing as much time as we are to it. As this is a public comment period, we're not really going to discuss it, but I just felt I needed to voice the justification for our concerns and our attention and time that we put into it.
Thank you, and thank you for the opportunity, Angus.
You're welcome. Are there any other public comments? Seeing none, let's move on to approval of the November minutes. I don't believe we have the 30th, but we have the 18th. Was everyone able to take a look at those?
Mr. Chair, I had a question because the minutes that were posted in the packet were actually from April, not November's.
correct.
So I don't think those were formally sent to the commission. So I would respectfully request that the April 15th, which is in the packet, be the ones that you all motion on and hold the November 18th and 30th to actually be submitted.
Good point, Holly. Thank you for that. November, I think David sent to all the commissioners, but it wasn't part of this packet. So we can go ahead and move to approve the minutes that are in the packet. Are there any comments?
They look fine to me.
Thanks, Clement. Would anyone like to make a motion to approve?
So moved.
Thank you, Tom. Do I have a second?
Second,
Yeah.
Thank you. All in favor? I'm going to just go down the line. Abby
Aye.
and Tom on your motion.
Aye.
Nikki,
Aye.
Georgia,
aye.
who have I not gotten here?
Me, aye. Clement,
Clement on your second. Thank you. All right. I am in favor as well. So unanimous approval of the minutes that are in the packet. Now to our featured part. So let's move on to the program of surveying historic resources. Holly, do you want to start that off?
Sure, I'm gonna undo this. So as you all are aware, we're wrapping up our project with PAL as far as the island-wide survey plan. Very, very excited. I hope you all have really dived into it and appreciated it as much as I have. A lot of work they've done for us. So we're wrapping up this first fiscal year 21 grant that we all received as a CLG, which was the twofold: one, the pilot survey of the fish lots, and two, the actual survey plan, which is what we're going to be able to utilize to focus and do our survey work for the rest of the island and the NHL. So I'm happy that Melissa, Andre, and Aaron Boyce from PAL are here today. Thank you very much to go over the project. I'll leave it to them.
All right. Morning, all. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you all today. And on behalf of PAL, I would just like to thank the steering committee, the commission, and Holly. Without your assistance and your hard work on many Zoom group calls, the survey plan that's the end result wouldn't have been possible without all your input and help. And the discussion today is really intended to just kind of give you a brief overview of the plan and kind of how we arrived at the recommendations that we did. So the plan was designed primarily to be a blueprint for future completion of an updated townwide survey for all of Nantucket. And this is especially important given that over the process of this project, it really became clear, I think, to all of us, kind of at even a numbers level, of how unique Nantucket is with the challenges you all face, given you have almost 13,000, over 13,000 historic resources that you're managing. And this is all within the island-wide LHD and NHL. And that includes buildings up to 1975, which is a broad range of architecture, a broad range of history that you're trying to capture and understand. And so over the course of the project, PAL's team of architectural historians, along with our GIS manager, we started out by just reviewing and assessing the existing survey, documentation, and research sources that exist. We worked to become familiar with the Nantucket history, major themes of the history, as well as the historic resources. And this included doing a reconnaissance level drive over of the entire island. We also reviewed the 2013 NHL data sheet, and we worked to edit it and kind of give you more of a working document. And that data sheet is really the basis that we used for the analysis of how to provide you with the action plan part of the survey in order to know when you should be surveying different resources and how. And then within that, we identified 3 major threats to historic resources, neighborhoods, and landscapes. And those were kind of within the categories of demolition and redevelopment, climate change and sea level rise, and then changes in use and property types. And then from there, using those threats, we developed a town-wide recommendation where we ranked the resources into categories of high priority, moderate priority, or low priority. And this included both new and previously inventoried historic resources. And it was based on both Nantucket's history, past survey accomplishments, and current conditions and challenges and goals. And then with the town's help, well, the steering committee's help primarily, and Holly's, we broke the island down into 59 survey units. And these were based on both the layout of roads, development patterns, themes of history of how all these different little villages developed across the island, as well as land use of the more dense areas versus the more rural areas and the ones that have a high prominence of conservation land. And then from that, we grouped these 59 areas into 10 geographic areas in order to give you more of a working level of how to divide the island for future survey. And then once we had those survey units broken down, we developed recommendations for the neighborhood survey unit specifically, considering the present status of both inventoried and uninventoried resources. And then we also used the currently identified threats and challenges to create that ranking. And then with all of that, the goal of like the big meat of this report was the action plan. And that provides you with the specific framework and direction that you guys can take moving forward on how to survey and document resources on the island. And that provides you with a multi-phase approach to be able to do it in a timely and consistent manner to keep the process moving, since you do have so many properties that you're trying to assess and document. So we laid it out with MHC's guidance to be on a 10-year schedule. And we provided estimated costs for all the different survey units and estimated breakdowns of how many properties within those 59 neighborhoods you're actually looking at surveying. And that number was arrived at using the NHL data, but also your assessor data, which includes dates of construction. So we did not include properties that are either vacant, conservation land, or properties that were constructed after 1975. And then within the ranking, we used 1 through 10 to correlate with the 10-year plan. And we started with 1 being the first priority. So those are your most threatened, most significant areas on the island, and 10 being the last priority, the lowest priority. And those are the neighborhood units that either have only a handful of resources, don't have as many threats that they're facing at the moment. And this ranking is kind of your guidelines, but as your needs like evolve over the years, or if there's a certain neighborhood that you know is facing new threats or a little more threats on the sea level rise side or erosion side, you can kind of switch the plan around to cover those neighborhoods first. So it's a guideline, but it's not a plan that you have to stick with and do in that order. And also within the action plan, we've provided partnership suggestions for you to be able to complete the survey in a timely manner, because documenting 13,000 resources, that's a lot. So you're going to need to be partnering with different organizations, different community groups, MHC, to kind of move it along. And then we also provided you with a template survey methodology and sample scope of work. And this was based a lot on the fish lot survey, which was your pilot survey for the start of these rounds of inventorying. And then in addition to all of the action plan and the survey plan, we provided PDFs and electronic files of the tables we were using and working files for you to keep using, as well as maps. And we provided the specifically the annotated NHL data sheet, which we hope will be useful for you moving forward to better be able to account for these resources, both in a data table format, but also to correlate with GIS. So in conclusion, we submitted all of the products the end of November, and we received great feedback from all of you. We really appreciate you taking the time to review it, and we're still awaiting comments from MHC. So once all of the comments are in, we can prepare and submit the final plan for you all in MHC. So thank you. Any questions?
Thank you so much. If I may, Mr. Chair, I just wanted to mention that MHC has told me they're going to be providing PAL comments ASAP. So they'll be forthcoming. So that way there's a good turnaround. But every comment that I think this commission has provided, I've also sent the drafts to NPDC so they can see what we're doing from a planning perspective, as well as the select board. So they're aware, and comments that we received have just been, appreciative, phenomenal, and I forward those on to Pal, so you all are aware of that.
Thank you, Holly. When MHC's comments are provided, is that something that you can share with us?
Yes, absolutely.
Everything that I've seen of this report is just spectacular, and I so appreciate all the work that's gone into it. And Melissa, thank you for showing up today and talking about all the work that you've done. Are there any questions or comments from the commission?
I have a question.
Please go ahead, Hillary.
Thank you. First of all, I just want to express extreme appreciation to Pal and to Holly and to the steering committee for this report. It's going to be it is so meaningful. It's so great to read. And I really appreciated how you all expanded on the Beinecke era from what was in the 2012 National Historic Landmark update. That was super interesting to read. One of the things that has been a question is, well, how do we handle, the houses from the 60s and 70s? What's the framework? How do we advise the HDC? So I felt you moved the ball forward with that. Of course, there will still be more work to do when those resources are actually surveyed. I did have a question. Well, I had one point, which is Great Point Light is not privately owned. It's in the table as formerly federally owned and now privately owned, but it's actually still owned by the Coast Guard. And it's been a topic of conversation for us that could the Coast Guard consider surveying the significance of that structure for including it on the National Register outside of our landmark designation. So that might be something to include in the report. I had another comment on well, you know what, the other comments I'll give to you separately rather than take time now, but I wondered if you could expand on the threats. I get demolition, redevelopment, climate change, changes in use of property type. Can you just expand on that for a minute?
Yeah, so that category of threat is really based on discussions with you all about how certain areas, specifically more recently, are facing a lot of pressure for change in use. So downtown, where you have houses being bought up specifically with the purpose and goal of turning them into rentals and things of that nature. So it's really focused on the properties that are experiencing a change of their traditional use. So residential for a single family being switched to multifamily or short-term rentals and leases, things of that nature, or a property that originally had a smaller house on it, but they're looking to demo and build a much, much larger house to accommodate different needs. So it's a shift in the traditional development pattern and a shift in the traditional use pattern is really the focus of that threat.
Okay. Well, that's what I thought you were getting at, but we actually have a guest on the line, Dave Iverson, who is he's a member of the short-term rental group. And if this is something in the report, I think we should make an effort. Well, I would ask the commission to make an effort, or Holly to make an effort to communicate that formally to the STR group as input. I think it would be important for them to know, because historic resources haven't really been part of that discussion. It's been kind of hinted at by various select board members, but I don't think it's actively part of the discussion right now.
That's a great suggestion.
Looks
Thank
like
you, Hillary.
Dave raised his.
David, I see your hand up.
Yeah, I just would say that any information that we receive in the short-term work group would be helpful. So I think that the group, I can't speak for the group, but I can say that I think that people would appreciate to hear people's feelings.
Thank you.
So thanks. Yeah.
Abby, were you saying something?
No, I was just saying that Dave had his hand up.
Okay, thanks.
That was it.
Any other comments?
Mr. Chair, I just wanted to take this time to thank all those, basically the our public and private partnerships that we have. It's noted that NPT, Nantucket Preservation Trust, NHA, Sconset Trust, they are our allies in this project moving forward, actually in the start of this as well. And we couldn't do it without their assistance. And I just want to highlight that it's not just a town of Nantucket initiative through this commission, but it's in the CLG, but it's also a public and private partnership. So happy to see that move forward. And I note specifically on a lot of the properties within, say, the fish lots, for instance, were information provided from NPT, as well as we all are aware of the work that Sconset Trust has also been doing, where they're bringing their reports, extensive reports, and formalizing it into the Form Bs. That's part of this whole process. So they will, obviously, their assistance in this process will help minimize that 10-year time frame that's been projected down further, hopefully. As well as, I think it should be noted, and I know Pal noted it in the plan, that there have been efforts to update our, what I call 89 old HDC surveys into the proper formats and Form Bs as MHC requires, through anytime anybody applies for a preservation restriction or a historic tax credit. So we will eventually see more and more of those Form Bs being redone, which will essentially help our survey plan. So I just want to make that note. Thanks.
Thank you, Holly. It really has taken a village, and Sconset Trust and Nantucket Preservation Trust have been integral parts of that. So thank you for your involvement. Susan, it's good to see you joining. Are there any other comments before we move on to specifically the latest batch of survey?
Well, I'd just like to say, I love it. It's a great start. It's really exciting. And the Sconset Trust, as a kind of a spokesperson for the Sconset Trust, we're delighted to help however we can. And we also have our book is going to be published soon, next month, I believe. We'll have it, Building Wisconsin in Mind, that Michael May has written for us. And I've seen drafts of it, and it is going to be spectacular. It's not specific buildings, but kind of advice of the 7 different neighborhoods that he has broken Sconset into, and what is appropriate for each neighborhood in terms of building and restoration and landscaping and everything. It's magnificent. So I'm putting in a plug for that. Thank you.
Thank you. That's exciting. Please let us know when it's available.
I will. I'll
Um,
make sure everyone gets a copy too.
Oh, excellent.
We want it distributed widely.
David Silver, welcome.
Hey, good morning.
Shall we continue, Erin?
Absolutely. So again, just want to say thank you so much for having Pal. It's a pleasure to be here. As Melissa stated, we have completed the fish lot survey, which is, as you all have noted already, the first phase in the 10-year plan to survey all of the town and island of Nantucket. And Pal has been very excited to be involved with this process and to get the ball rolling, as it were. It was a pleasure working in the Fish Lots neighborhood, which, as you're all, I'm sure, aware, developed and is one of the oldest neighborhoods on Nantucket, and developed in the 18th and early 19th centuries predominantly. As part of the process of this survey, this pilot survey, as we've been calling it, we collected a wide and organized a wide range of resources, research sources, I should say, including historic maps, house reports from the Nantucket Preservation Trust, and other sources, Sanborn maps and things like that. And that was pretty extensive. We also looked at some deeds, of course. We surveyed and completed MHC inventory forms for approximately 100 resources. That included one area form for a row of 5 row houses, and then 97 individual building forms. We counted the area form for the purposes of the survey as 3 properties. So it comes to a total of 100. And we have submitted the final work products to the town and MHC. And we're getting ready to get started on the phase 2 survey, which will be about 140 properties. And it'll be wrapping up the fish lots and then moving on to Brant Point and Cliffside. And we're very excited to get started with that process.
Excellent.
Mr. Chair, I just wanted to mention for the benefit of PAL, that with these Form Bs in the fish lots, Aaron, you'll be happy to know that I've already provided them through reviews, even in the draft format, into the formal format to the HDC on particular applications for their knowledge, and pass it on to their agent or architect for some of the projects that have been before them. Basically, we're talking a range of whether it was a color change or a minor addition, but essentially, trying to get people to understand that as this project continues on, these old HDC surveys will fade away and essentially be the form. So I just want to let you know that I've been able to pass them along.
Great, that was good to hear.
You know what? I'm realizing that we moved right on to the fish lots from the area survey, which I was looking to approve, but I'm wondering if that's going to be affected by Mass Historical, or if we should just go ahead and give our vote of approval for what we're looking at so far.
Mr. Chair, if it's at all possible, I think it would be beneficial to motion to approve pending those minor comments that will be forthcoming.
Are we going to run into a time limit? Will we be able to look at that before our next meeting, or should we sort of do that by staff, you and I and whoever else before the next meeting?
Or, I mean, as these comments come through, obviously Powell will be fixing anything that is needed to be done, but obviously can provide a list of those things. I just think it would be nice to, now that it's December, to have that formally adopted pending those minor changes.
Would anyone like to make that motion?
I'll make the motion that we approve the survey plan that Powell has presented.
Second.
Seconded.
Thank you, David. All in favor, Tom,
Aye.
Abby,
Aye.
Georgia,
Aye.
Susan,
Aye.
Clement on your motion,
Aye.
David on your second,
Aye.
Nikki,
Aye.
and I as well. So thank you. And let's return to our fish lots. Sorry about that. Thank you. Erin, is there anything else that you want to share with us about that?
No, it was a great project and we had a lot of fun doing it. So again, we're looking forward to the next phase and, the unique challenges and pleasures of working on Nantucket.
Well, it's been a pleasure having you. We're all very impressed with Pal's work and look forward to continuing the work. Are there any updates on the grant for the survey?
Mr. Chair, the fiscal year 2024 pre-application was submitted to MHC. As of yet, have not heard yet.
Okay.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Hillary.
I just wanted to suggest, given the benefit of this study for the community and the number of folks that are interested in preservation in the community, I just wonder if there might be, some kind of presentation of the select board that Holly could make, or, and members of the subcommittee could make, or some kind of information sessions held at the library. I think people would really appreciate it. And I would even suggest we might have like a section on the website where the survey, like just for surveys. Yeah.
Mr. Chair, if I may,
Please go ahead, Holly.
I will be presenting a presentation on the project to both the select board and PDC next week. So that's already been in the works.
All right.
Excellent.
This is personally to the commission and the public. I told Ginny with Pal that this is like a Christmas present. I think it's I think I could say that on the benefit of the entire preservation community on Nantucket. This is preservation planning. This is what we needed, and this is what we need to focus our time and efforts on. So thank you.
I'm looking forward to this being available to the general public, but it looks like we're very close, but not quite complete. So once it is complete, that'll be posted and accessible.
Yes, it will be.
All right. So let's move on to the our support letter for 5 Surfside. Aaron, do you have any updates on that? I mean, not on our letter, but on what work is going on at 5 Surfside?
Yes, good morning, Commissioners. Erin Doherty with Epsilon. Thank you for your time again here this morning. As Angus just stated, I'm here to request a renewed letter of support for the 5 Surfside Road project, which is seeking both state and federal historic tax credits. We were last before you in August. Just recap, the project, which has not begun construction, will address long-term deferred maintenance at the property, repairs to exterior siding, roofing, window repairs, and updates to building systems and interior finishes. The project is designed to preserve significant interior and exterior historic features and to comply with the Secretary of the Interior standards as required by the tax credit programs. Since we met with you in August to discuss the project, we have received a Part 1 and Part 2 approval from the National Park Service on the federal tax credit applications. In August, we received a request for some additional information on the state tax credit application from the Massachusetts Historical Commission. And that letter was issued in response to our first filing with MHC back in April. So we have responded to that request and we're awaiting a response, which we expect in mid-January. So while we are awaiting that response, we're preparing our application for the next state tax credit application cycle, which has a deadline of January 15th. There has been only one minor change to the project, which we proposed to MHC in response to their August letter, which I believe I sent to Holly. So you should have that. And that change relates to the treatment of the foundation wall at the second L of the property. As you might recall, that L is currently resting on the ground, and the project is going to be constructing a new foundation. So at that second L, the reveal of the foundation wall is about 6 inches off the ground, which is required by code. And MHC asked that there be a slightly different treatment of that foundation wall to differentiate it from the rest of the building, which today has an exposed foundation wall, unlike the second L. So we have proposed a scoring treatment on the surface of the concrete to subtly differentiate that foundation wall while still allowing it to remain compatible visually with the rest of the building. So we anticipate preparing samples during the construction phase of the project for review with MHC. So pending that approval, we have not brought that to the Historic District Commission, but once we have an approval for that approach and the samples, we'll bring that forward for approval. So that is kind of the update we have on the project. As I've discussed previously, the state tax credit program in Massachusetts remains highly competitive, not nearly enough money to go around to all of the eligible projects, which makes local support even more essential. So we appreciate your past support of the project and your continued support as the project moves forward. So with that update, I'm glad to answer any questions you might have. Thank you for your time this morning.
Thank you, Erin. Any questions or comments from the commissioners? Tom?
I certainly support the continuation of the project, and I think what was just presented is only just some minor changes that the MHC is really looking for. I don't think there's anything wrong with it at all. And I'm all in favor of going forward.
Angus?
Please go ahead, Mickey.
Yeah, I'm just curious, Aaron, is what 6 inches of foundation is not a significant amount of exposure, but I'm curious as to what you are proposing with this scoring technique.
So we're looking at a couple of different options. There's an option to we can line basically the pan of the concrete as the form. So we're thinking some kind of like texture on the surface, or some kind of lines, but we're still looking at options. But we do want it to remain the same concrete material. We're not looking at kind of facing it with another material. We thought that would maybe create more of a false sense of history if we were to, for example, give it a brick veneer. That was more than we thought would be appropriate here.
And what is the existing foundation material that's exposed?
No, there isn't one. So the building, the frame is right on the ground. I think there's maybe a shallow concrete pad under it, but really the framing is just sitting on the ground, and it's really rotting, which is why there's a desire to lift it up slightly.
So the main part of the house, that must have a...
So the main part of the house has a concrete foundation.
Okay, poured concrete.
Yeah.
Okay.
Georgia, please go ahead.
I have a question, Aaron, and perhaps I missed this in these statistics. How much higher is the house going to be once you've rearranged the foundation and lifted it?
Yes, so the entire house is receiving a new foundation. So there's the main house and then 2 Ls. The elevation of the main house and the first L will remain exactly the same. So the exposed foundation wall will be the same as it is currently. And the second L, it will come 6 inches off the ground.
I read that there was going to be livable space in that basement, right?
Correct. So there will be a new basement level below ground, but the kind of exposed from the exterior, the change will just be the 6-inch foundation.
Wow. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm to understand that the whole thing will be poured concrete, and there'll just be a different treatment of the not stucco, but the parging on that surface with just a different texture.
Correct. So the texture of the main house and the first L, the idea is to match the treatment that's there currently. It has a little bit of a texture, but to do a slightly different treatment at the second L.
Okay, Tom?
Yeah, I'm just anticipating, once you've got your 6 inches of exposure on the new foundation, the sill will sit on top of that, and the shingles are liable to come down a couple of inches below that. And when you get, spatter from rain and stuff like that, you're hardly going to see any of that foundation to begin with.
Yes, and there'll also be kind of foundation plantings and obviously landscaping. So I don't expect that much of this will be visible, especially standing up like on the sidewalk near the property. You probably won't really perceive much of a difference, but it's what MHC has requested. So we're trying to meet their expectations.
I included a letter of support. Did it end up in the packet? Sorry. can't remember, but I've written one. But would someone like to make a motion to go ahead and send our continued support?
I make a motion that we continue support for this project.
Thank you.
Second,
Who did the second?
I did.
Oh,
Second.
Evan, thank you. Okay, all in favor? Mickey,
Aye.
Clement,
Aye.
Georgia,
Aye.
David,
Aye.
Susan,
Aye.
Tom on your motion,
Aye.
Abby on your second,
Aye.
I as well. So we will have that off to you soon, Erin.
Great, thank you very much. We appreciate your continued support for this project and hope to see it moving forward in the coming year.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Good to see you.
Thank you.
So I'll move on to the annual report. Abby, you had a comment, and I just wanted to see if you had anything to offer.
Well, I was just asking about, I think I was confused on the time period because at the top it says FY, which I'm assuming is fiscal year, which you pointed out is June to June. But then right at the top, it then says calendar year. So I think if we just clarify that it's for fiscal year 2022 and what that time period covers, I think that will eliminate most of the confusion.
Okay. And any other comments?
Mr. Chair, the only thing that I would recommend is there's some things to be, it should be in a chronological order, and case in point is under like community education, for instance.
Mhm.
I feel that August 2021 should come before June 2022. It's just a chronological aspect of things. But that was my main comment. Looks good.
Thank you, Holly. So I had asked Hillary to help with this report, especially since she was chairing during that period. And she was kind enough to do that. So Hillary, have you taken note of those changes?
Yeah, good
Does that make sense?
suggestions and good catch. So I can make that change if you all want to approve it. Happy to do it. Thanks.
So with those changes to be made, would anyone like to make a motion to approve?
I
Tom?
approve the annual report with the changes that have been submitted.
I second.
Thanks, Georgia. In favor, Abby?
I do think we need to talk about one of the things, which I appreciate us having input from the former chair, but I don't think ethically I can support the former chair actually writing the report, because I think it needs to be written by someone who's actually on the commission. So I think that that's just my one concern, because if we open the door to having documentation for our commission drafted by people who are no longer on the commission, I'm just not comfortable with that. And that, I think that refers to any letters, anything. I just think that it really should be written by the current commission, because when it's submitted, it's being submitted by the current commission. So that's just my concern.
I appreciate that concern. I think that there is help that we all can use wherever we can find it, and I couldn't think of a more appropriate person to help with this document. And I think as long as we are all in agreement that it's what we want to state, I don't really see an issue with it, but I want to hear from the rest of the commission. Tom?
I don't have any problem with Hillary writing this because she was on the commission at the time. And in our next annual report, she won't be able to write it because she's not on the commission. It's as simple as that.
Thank you, Tom. Georgia?
I think, it's ministerial. If worst case, somebody, if Hillary gave me the text and I made that chronological correction and submitted it, what is the difference going to be? So from my point of view, substantively, we might as well accept it as written from Hillary with the corrections. There's no
Uh,
substantive difference in my mind, and I don't think there's a legal distinction to be made.
Thanks, Georgia. Anyone else, Mickey or David, Clement?
I'm
I,
fine with it.
I agree with Georgia. We've reviewed it and we've accepted it, so.
David?
Yeah, I'm generally okay with how the letter's written, or the report rather, but I do, sympathize with what Abby's saying, and it sounds like, there won't really be anything else that would be eligible for the former chair to be writing. So I think that, assuming that that's how we'd be moving forward, I would, I'm in support of accepting this report today, barring those changes.
All right, so should we do this again with the caveat that we are, go ahead, Tom.
I move that we approve the annual report as submitted with those notable changes.
Second.
Thanks, Georgia. David?
Aye.
Susan?
Aye.
Clement?
Aye.
Nikki?
Aye.
Abby?
Aye.
And I as well. So we'll make those changes and then post that for our fiscal year report. And thanks again for writing it, Hillary.
Thank you. Angus, could I just make a comment?
Please.
Thanks. I'm here to help this commission whenever I'm requested to help. And obviously anything that I'm asked to help with, you all are going to review and see and discuss. So, I didn't particularly, I don't have a lot of time. I do a lot of things. It took a long time to write this report. It covered the period of time when I was chair. So, it's a little upsetting to feel, like my help isn't welcome. So I'm a volunteer and a friend of the commission. So I just wanted to say that. Thank you.
Thank you, Hillary. And thank you for all of your previous work and the work that you still are willing to do for this commission. It really makes a difference.
Thank you, Angus.
Let's move on to a request from Beacon Wind to be a consulting party.
So, Mr. Chair, as your staff liaison, actually to both commissions, as well as a Section 106 rep for the NPDC, as well as on our wind farm work group, staff with my colleague Lauren Sinatra in the Energy Office. A whole bunch of basically the letter that's in the packet was submitted to all the listed parties. I have responded to BOEM, as well as this one in particular is Beacon Wind, on behalf of your rep, Tom, and I copied him, as well as the rep for the NPDC, as far as the rep for HDC, and our expert council that the town has hired, as well as the town administration, so they're aware that that I was correcting the record, basically reminding them who the correct authorities are on Nantucket. And I just wanted to make the comment that it's almost like every single time there's a new wind farm, we have to remind that BOEM is the federal organization that from the from the Department of the Interior that handles the review of wind farms. And I have to keep on reminding them who the consulting party, reps, and that Nantucket doesn't have just one sole person because of all how complex and unique Nantucket is. So I just wanted to mention that they've been on notice, and I copied the reps for those organizations, including this one. So Tom,
thank you.
should see
Thank
an
you, Holly.
email. Yes. Tom, you probably saw the email I copied you on.
Tom, do you have any comments?
I've read all the stuff that I've been sent, and I'm still, sorry. I think it's all smoke and mirrors, and the town has done the wrong thing, and I'm going to hold that. The only good news is they're moving farther away from the island. That's all I can say.
And Mr. Chair, if I may, I want to be on the record. The town has only, the first wind farm have an agreement. That's it. That's the only one. Just because and I want to make it clear, just because we have one agreement with the first ever setting wind farm, doesn't mean that that's what we're going to be continue on doing. Again, that's why I've always mentioned Section 110F of the National Historic Preservation Act. No undue harm onto an NHL is very important. If you all want to dive into Section 110F, I highly encourage you as just a commissioner to take a look at it. Have any questions, reach out. But that's what we've been advocating for any chance we get, anytime there's any type of communication with an organization that's wanting to go through this process that's been pushed. So I just want to make it clear that we can't look at what was done with the first wind farm as that's the way the town of Nantucket is going to be moving forward. And I do want to give props to our expert council. They are the best of the best in this country for an unprecedented industry that has come to our shores, whether we like it or not. So thank you.
Thanks, Holly. Are there, for the commissioners who are unfamiliar with that Section 110F, can you just briefly state what that is?
Basically, it's a section under Section 106 of the National Historic Preservation Act, where anytime there's an undertaking, there is an area of potential effect. And when it comes to a National Historic Landmark, Section 110F basically mentions that, first of all, the Advisory Council for Historic Preservation gets involved. And I can tell you they are engaged, which is good. But also, that section of the federal law is that any undertaking has no harm on the National Historic Landmark. One of the biggest things what we're dealing with is the fact that Nantucket being an NHL, and the fact that the federal government has subdivided the federal waters south of us as well as to the southwest of us. There's going to be a cumulative effect on the NHL, and that cumulative effect is what is been very difficult for these companies, as well as BOEM as that federal agency, to actually quantify and show what exactly. And it's not just once these farms are created or installed, but it's also during the construction. So there's a lot of unknowns, really. But at the end of the day, reminding the federal government of their federal law that was enacted in 1966, that NHLs should be protected with an undue harm is very, very important. I think they're slowly realizing that and we're not the only NHL in this area. Rhode Island has their own, Newport, there's plenty on the eastern seaboard. We are obviously the largest contiguous, but reminding these individual leased areas of wind farms that they must show those cumulative effects is very, very important.
Thank you, Holly.
But I can send information on 110F if you'd like.
Commissioners, any questions, concerns? See none, we can move on to the next thing, which is the support that we want to offer for the HDC advisory boards. Are there any comments?
Yeah, Angus, I've been, as you know, with our discussions on the Historic Structures Board, I've been working on a kind of a short list of comments that I think that eventually we'll share with both the HDC and the Select Board, just explaining why we, from our perspective, feel it's important that the boards become more of an officially sanctioned part of the town. And you know, I've got that mostly prepared. It's ready to be presented when it's appropriate. I'm not even sure when that is. I think we need to. I think the HDC I'm not even sure how the HDC feels about this question at the moment. They don't seem to be pushing it very hard, and I don't think it's going to be terribly effective, a discussion of the Select Board without the HDC's cooperation and encouragement. So at the moment, I'm just kind of sitting, waiting with this information, hoping that you know, it'll happen. Maybe we need to help promote that. Maybe we need to talk to the HDC more about it. I think that was brought up at this week's meeting at the HDC is maybe a discussion point at this coming meeting. I'm not sure if that's going to get on the agenda. Holly, do you know if that's on the agenda or it will be?
I have not touched base with Esmeralda if that was on the agenda or not. As you probably are aware, anything that's put on the agenda that's not a typical review item is vetted through the chair. So I don't know if that's been posted or not.
Yeah, I suspect it's probably not going to be an item unless it comes up with public comment, which
Mickey, I can comment on that.
sure.
What happened at the last meeting is a commissioner requested that it be added to discussion for this Tuesday's discussion, and usually under commissioner comments. So I expect that it will be added because it was officially requested, and in the past when it's been requested, it's been added.
Okay. Well, I'm hoping to be able to attend the meeting through Zoom, and if it comes up as an item for discussion, I'll try to contribute what I've got. And you know, again, this I think has to go eventually land at the Select Board, and seems like it has to go through the HDC.
Thank you, Mickey. Any other commissioners?
This seems to me like, I mean, Mr. Iverson said earlier in this meeting that we shouldn't spend any more time on it. I think when the point is when the time is appropriate, and I'm not sure what that appropriate time is, but Mickey, I appreciate you being on the meeting. So if the time is appropriate, you'll be there to comment. I think everyone knows how we feel about these advisory boards and that we would like to see them put back on. And so however we can help, we don't need to discuss it anymore. I think they know what we want. And when it does come up, they will know that the advisory boards have our support. Thank you.
Thanks, Clement. I think that we've made it clear that we want to support the HTC, and we feel that the advisory boards are part of that support. The way we left it in our last special meeting regarding this was that the HDC was about to have a meeting and discuss it, which they ended up not doing. So my concern is that it just sort of slips and rolls and gets kicked down the road. And so we might need to act more proactively than reacting to what the HTC is doing in their meetings. So it's just ongoing. And Mickey, thanks for offering to be at that meeting. And if you could just let us, if you hear anything, or Holly, in your interactions with the HDC, if you're aware that something's going to come up about the advisory board um, the different advisory boards, if you could let us know. So we have time to post a meeting if there's more than one of us or a quorum to join. If there are no other comments, let's move on to the next thing.
Sorry,
Yes.
Angus. I also just want to chime in on since Dave is back in the meeting and had made a public comment that was germane. Well, it was part of this discussion. This idea, if there are folks that think that the Historical Commission commenting on the effectiveness of the HDC at protecting historic resources on Nantucket is somehow like out of the lane of this commission, I just want to point out that it's certainly my opinion as a member of the public that the public that is interested in protecting historic resources is relying on this commission to be an independent additional voice to advocate for preservation. And that's well documented that that's what this commission does. And to the extent that the advisory boards are an important aspect of helping the HDC function, even if the HDC was saying they didn't want them themselves, I would hope that this commission would use its voice to speak up to support that. Personally, I think that if this commission or the advisory boards don't actually ask to have it put back in front of the select board, I think it's just going to go away as an issue, and the advisory boards will continue to operate independently and offer their feedback until something happens, and then it'll just be forgotten about. But there are other ways to help manage the historic district of Nantucket. It doesn't have to be through advisory boards. It could be revisited in other ways, but all of that I think is of a high level of concern to this commission, and it's appropriate to have it be discussed and to spend a lot of time on it, frankly, is my opinion as a member of the public.
Well, it certainly is. Thank you, Hillary. Georgia?
I'm seconding what Hillary says, and I'm thinking, I appreciate David coming and telling us his position on this, but I'm thinking planning and economic development does not mention preservation anywhere. Planning and economic development. Okay, not preservation, not historicity, not a sense of place. And it seems to me that there's almost, I'd almost go so far as to say there's been a conflict. And that makes it even more important that the Historical Commission exists as a voice for preservation alongside the nonprofits and alongside the HDC, because obviously that entire large group over there, planning and economic development, is not paying a lot of attention to preservation. They may or may not agree with what Matt Fee said at a recent select board meeting, which is that preservation is why people come here. They don't come here because we're going to look like another Darien, Connecticut. They come here because we look like Nantucket, a National Historic Landmark since 1962 or 57 or whenever it was, 62. So I think the preservation part is extremely important. And I think if that means we have to stand up for whatever advisory boards help make the HGC's workload go a little bit more smoothly, then that's what we have to do. I don't care what planning and economic development thinks of it.
I just had a question. Holly, are you present at the Planning and Economic Development meeting?
Not all of them, but when there's a preservation topic, insight, what have you, I'm asked.
Oh,
And
but it's more like on an ad hoc basis.
it's an ad hoc basis, yeah, but not everything they had before them. I think it needs to be understood of the type of topics that come before that commission. It's not always going to be or something that's preservation related. So.
Okay.
David, I see your hand up.
Thank you, Angus. I just wanted to clarify. I am speaking for myself and not for any board that I'm on, first of all. And I just wanted to make sure that it's understood that I in no way wanted to intimate that preservation wasn't important. It's actually just the opposite. I'm saying that it is very important, And that my concern is that you guys are too far down the rabbit hole on the committees. And I'm not denying that the committees are important, but I think that a letter of support is all you need, and to continue on with your meetings and discussing it at length isn't gonna help the situation. This is really between HDC and the select board, and you guys have stated your case, and again, only my opinion, but you should move on from here, because I just think that it doesn't reflect well on your board. And I'm not saying anything bad about your board. I'm just concerned that I want your board to stay relevant, active, and to do its work. So that's all I was really saying. What your work is important is what I'm saying, and that you shouldn't be mired down in this is really my message. So again, thank you.
Thank you, David. Well, we don't really like to be mired in anything, but sometimes there's work in the trenches to be done, and the historic preservation on Nantucket is there's a constant threat, and now more than ever. So it's something that you know, we obviously all care deeply about, and we're wanting to implement any tools necessary, and certainly don't want tools removed, which they have been. So it takes commitment and innovation and stick-to-itiveness, and that's what we're here for.
Right on, Angus.
If there are no other comments about that, then we can move on to other business. Holly, do you want to mention anything about the WPI presentations?
Thank you. So this past, so basically at the end of the day, WPI students have been coming to Nantucket for probably the last 7 years at least, maybe even more. And this is my 4th year, I think, involved, 2nd year as an actual sponsor of a group. There were 5 different WPI groups this year. I was able to sponsor one with my colleague, Lauren Sinatra, in the energy office. Really we're looking at solar. This was more of a data research, if you will, looking at what has been approved by the HGC for solar, what, you know, and in this misconception that they don't approve solar, you know, obviously data speaks a lot of words, and also having a map to show that for the solar rebate program, and having actually a visual working GIS based document, and that utilizes our permitting software. So they worked really, really hard. They had the WPI students had their final presentations this Tuesday, but the past Tuesday, right? No, sorry, this week has gotten all messed up for me. Sorry, this past Tuesday, sorry, afternoon. Did a wonderful job. My understanding is their final reports will be submitted to all the different sponsors. So for instance, the NHA was a sponsor of one, Sustainable Nantucket was a sponsor for another group. So all the sponsors will receive their report. And then my understanding through the professor that they will also be posted on the WPI's website for the public's viewing. But great group of students. I couldn't be, you know, more excited to work with WPI every year with different groups of students. I think ours were mostly juniors, and I know a lot of them really take their what they're going to school for and their passions, and really emphasize it within their basically project that they're assigned. So just wanted to mention that, and I will let the commission know when I'm notified when all the different reports are available, as well as the presentation that they had this week is it going to be also available. It was recorded, so it'll be available for viewing. And that was my main on that.
You'll send us a link, Holly?
Yes, as soon as I'm notified from the professor that it's available on their website, I will send the commission, both the commissions. Yes.
I watched some of that and I'm looking forward to it being available. So we'll just look for the links from you, Holly. There, since our last meeting, there's been an exciting discovery. Can you tell us what you know so far about what's happened with the shipwreck discovery?
Yes, so, as the town's preservation planner, I was notified by the sewer director, that there was something sticking out of the beach. And I immediately contacted the State Historic Preservation Office, MHC, who has co-jurisdiction, with there's an acronym for this organization, but it's another state entity. They're, underwater archaeologists, excuse me. And their director came to Nantucket. Thank you to Egan Maritime Institute for facilitating this. Funny how Nantucket works. I was communicating with the state on my end. Egan Maritime was communicating with the state on their end. So they were notified double, which is good, about the shipwreck. Now the shipwreck is gone. It's been put, accretion happens. That's the ebb and flow of erosion and sediment, especially on our south shore. We might see it again, we might not see it again. But we are
We know where it is, though.
we all know where it is now, yes. But this is going to be an education element is what Egan Maritime wants to do. The town, obviously, we're in supportive of having an education component to this for the public. And we are diligently waiting for the report from the state archaeologist on this shipwreck. My understanding from meeting him, which was awesome to do. It was a pleasure, and I appreciated Egan Maritime of setting our meeting up with him. There's other sites within the Commonwealth that have had shipwrecks with this past year, even. As a matter of fact, the same week that the one on Nantucket came up, there was one in Florida. So as climate is changing and all that, and erosion happens, we're going to obviously see more and more of that. And it makes sense of this location on the South Shore where all the shoals are. But at the end of the day, we're waiting to hear back of his report. And I believe meeting the state and Egan Maritime and the town will be working on a press release for the public. So again, it's a partnership. And those public-private partnerships are very, very important, especially for preservation and archaeology. So really cool. And I just wanted to let the commission know that, I had a little bit of involvement with it, and it was cool to see. I actually was able to take photographs while the archaeologist was here doing his thing. So that was neat.
Cool.
Thank you, Holly.
Sounds like a good opportunity for education, as you mentioned. Maybe we can,
Yes.
in the upcoming year, like in 2023, do a sponsored something.
I think that would be cool. When the archaeologist was here, his name is David, David Robinson, he provided us a book of where other locations in the Commonwealth have done. So for instance, the trustees of reservation, obviously they own more land in Massachusetts, and they recently had a shipwreck as well in the last few years. And he was showing how they were taking that experience of having the shipwreck there on their beach, on bringing the students within the school system, the public in general, and how they were educating folks. So not only is he going to give us his professional archaeological report on the findings, but he's also going to be helping us, facilitate and make it an educational component. And obviously Egan Maritime, that's what they love to do. They like to be able to utilize telling the story that obviously ships, whaling and fishing, the fishing industry is very important in Nantucket's history. So yes, the education component, and it would be nice to continue that partnership. So I'm looking forward to having more communication with them.
Cool.
No doubt.
Thanks, Holly. Tom, here.
Yeah, I just was a question for Holly. Thank you for that, Holly. I'm just curious as to, in that archaeological report, the professional report, are they going to try and make a ballpark estimate on what ship that was?
Yes, there have, due to Nantucket's extensive history,
Right,
yeah.
especially there.
Exactly. There's an idea of which ship this is, which is pretty cool. And it's
Be great
not
if it
just,
was the Warren Sawyer, but that's just me.
I believe you're not the only one that thinks that. So, but it would be nice to be able to actually pinpoint it to an actual ship. And due to Nantucket's extensive history available from the Inquiring Mirror that goes so far back to the NHA's archives and photo documentation, books that have been written on shipwrecks off the coast of Nantucket. Excuse me. So very cool.
Yep.
Very, very cool.
David, your hand is up. Do you have a question or comment? Sorry, Everson, not Silver.
Sorry, no.
It's a lingering hand. Not to put you on the spot, Susan, but I know that you have experience with archaeology. What are your thoughts?
Well, I've just become aware of the shipwreck, so I only have very limited knowledge of what's going on there. But I think, as I mentioned many moons ago to this commission, that I think that this part of our archaeological history has not gotten a lot of what's the word I want to use? Kind of technical and it's these random things that happen, and I think it's marvelous. I should say I'm extremely excited that this is, as Holly's saying, created so much interest on the island about maritime archaeology. And it's something I think that should bring up for us, as I've said before, that we need to take a position, or at least be aware of the fact that all of this archaeological material is in our harbor, on all of our shorelines. And, when we look at projects, we need to look a little further rather than just our structures and, our historic downtown area, which I think we do, but definitely our areas that are maritime, we definitely need to stay on top of, and they are a great, because it excites people so much, it's a great way to incorporate the public into, the process of preservation. And so I just think it's exciting and marvelous, and I look forward to seeing the report.
Thank you for your insight. We see plenty of paintings and maps and references to the history, but it's rare that we actually have firsthand experience with the excavation, or not excavation, but the appearance of
Uncovering, yeah.
So it is exciting, and I think there is a lot of interest in that. Is it too early to say, or is this even something that's done? Is this something that will be excavated? Or will it be allowed to just get buried over, and that's just how it goes?
I think it will just be allowed to be buried again. Extremely expensive to excavate something like that, unless it had some amazing, unique factor involved with it. I think the best thing for it is just to be covered up again and let to be sit there. But there's so many other ways right now that they can look at things through other techniques, like looking through the ground, looking through the sand. They might be able to see kind of the extent of it and what was actually still surviving of it, without having to excavate it. But it's extremely expensive to try to to mitigate all that sand and keep the water back and all of that type of thing. So I don't anticipate seeing them doing an excavation.
I can comment on that, Mr. Chair. No, there was no interest in excavating in this area specifically. And that's where the whole education component comes in to teach the public, you know, when you do see them, do not disturb them, you know, contact authorities, but also the education component to this specific shipwreck and, you know, obviously to its origins and that nature. So it was at first discussed that, you know, they were going to do a carbon date of the wood, but it sounds like that doesn't need to be done because of what they're thinking it is. So again, I'm looking forward to seeing this report, and hopefully that will be provided to the public. So we'll go from there.
Excited about the developments on that. Thanks, Holly. So in the news too was the Cold War National Register, Register area, which is the JFK bomb shelter. Is there any news about that?
I have not, Mr. Chair, have heard anything other than, I will tell you, if you haven't seen it, it's in our survey report. I made sure Pal was aware of that. That this is a potential to be on the National Register per that report that was done from the Cold War era sites. So that is indicated and for future, obviously, discussion and interest. But I haven't heard anything else other than that.
Thank you. Rita, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. Mary met with a representative from the Park Service last Friday and had a discussion about potentially moving forward with either nominating that as a separate site or potentially bundling it with others, you know, related to similar themes. So she's been in conversation.
Great.
Yeah, there's a very interesting report. I only became aware of it because the Nantucket Current wrote about it, but have other people seen the report from, I see Holly's nodding her head. Have commissioners seen the report from the Park Service on Cold War sites? I'll circulate it, or Holly can circulate it, but it's fun to read. They did a thematic study to see if the Park Service might want to prioritize adding more Cold War sites that were important in the Cold War to the National Register, because, you know, they're at risk of disappearing if they're not registered, and Nantucket's bomb shelter was added. It just makes me wonder, I should have brought it up when we were talking about the survey plan. I wonder if our select board and town leaders always realize the significance of some of these more obscure sites, you know, that don't look like fish houses and you know, salt boxes. We have these sites like the town building is called out on the survey report as being something that should be specifically surveyed and that is contributing in the category of those mid-century buildings that were part of the preservation movement on Nantucket. And just a couple weeks ago, you know, their calls to, you know, to remodel the town building. I think they want to demolish it. Like they want to move out of it. I don't know. Holly can speak to it more clearly. Holly, you're looking like you don't know what I'm talking about.
No, I do know, if I may, Mr. Chair, I do know that town's looking at making changes to windows, doing, you know, repair that needs to be done, maintenance to the structure, as well as to other town-owned contributing structures. But I haven't heard anything about it to be proposed to be demolished. I will say, excuse me, that Hillary is 100% correct that that structure is listed as a contributing structure in the colonial revival timeframe, built in, I think, 64, 62, 64, something like that. Right. You know, about not even 9-10 years after the local historic district was created in 55. but to think of the structure that was there prior to the Frederick C. Sanford Greek revival that I've heard in first primary sources, meaning the Inquirer Mirror back in the day, discuss this gorgeous building that he left actually to the town, 10-foot tall ceilings. Talk about when you people think that just because George Washington slept there, President Grant, when he came to Nantucket, he visited that structure. So to think that unfortunately we demolished that structure in order to build what we have now. Yes, the existing town building is contributing, but it's a shame that it took a structure that was more significant than that one. So on a tangent there, Mr. Chair, sorry.
Well, thank you for the history. There's so much here. For some reason, I thought that was that a school before? I've forgotten. Okay.
Oh, no, the town specifically built that structure, the town building.
Right. I mean, the previous building.
Oh, the previous building? It was used when Frederick C. Sanford passed away. I think he gave land. There was, I think, money to the Athenaeum, and that structure. And my understanding is it was used as a community space for anybody in the town. So, it might have had a use like that. But put it this way, if you look on the Library of Congress Historic American Building Survey, the garden that was associated with that building was documented. Unfortunately, I guess at the time that the building was already gone, but that whenever I see a photo or any type of remnants of that structure, I always try to compile it because I think it's an important structure within our town history.
That's exciting about a green space being in town. I feel like the yard at the Athenaeum is our green space now. Mickey, I think we reviewed that for historic structures, the proposed changes, which involve windows and lighting and.
It's a major redoing of all of the exterior elements. I'm not sure what's, mostly windows, trim, repairing brickwork, the cupola. They keep putting it on the agenda and taking it off the agenda. I'm not sure why it's not really coming up.
When I was told, Mr. Chair, if I may, is that they're basically that was on behalf of the town, wanted to make sure that what they were requesting should be requested, and I was communicating with our energy coordinator on that. So my understanding is it should be moving forward.
No other comments on that. Maybe we can talk a little bit about what we're thinking about for priorities for the coming year. Mickey?
Yeah, I guess before I forget, and not to bring this back, but I'm thinking that regarding this coming meeting at the HDC regarding the advisory boards, as I said, I will probably be attending, but just in case that there are 2 or 3, at least, if we end up with a quorum at that meeting, it might be advisable to have that meeting posted for our commission.
I left that a little bit in the air about, whether it was going to come up and that then we would post, but if we post and we don't show up, that's going to be a lot less of an issue than showing up and not posting. So thank you for the recommendation, and that probably makes sense.
Good. Thanks.
Does everyone else agree? I'm seeing nodding heads.
Yes.
I don't know, is this something that we need to make a motion and vote on, or I'm happy to just do it.
Just do it.
Just do it.
That would be the safest thing to do.
And that's for this coming Tuesday. What is the date on that one?
20th.
Already.
Okay. Wow. All right. Thanks, Mickey. So the next thing up is a work plan for 23. We've brought up our, areas of concern and interest, and but maybe we can revisit those and everybody can think about what is important for them to continue with and what we might explore that's new as we head into the new year. Are there any ideas anyone wants to?
Mr. Chair, may I?
Please go ahead, Holly.
Thank you. So as your preservation planner, staff liaison, I would highly recommend setting some 2023 goals for this commission. And what I've written down is continuing our survey work, obviously following the survey plan, creating a revolving fund for historic properties, which some of the commissioners have been working diligently on that topic, the CLG, and how this commission can best support that important designation, obviously working with the HDC as necessary. Review of historic tax credit applications as requested, as you see them coming in. And I do want to give a thanks to Hillary on assisting creating that format for those applications. That seems to help the process, so thank you. Education, awareness, and engagement with the community of the Historical Commission's initiatives and how the public can benefit, as well as including collaboration, with our private counterparts, which includes MPT, PIN, Sconset Trust, NHA, et cetera. I would probably even add Egan Maritime and Mariah Mitchell on that list. I seem sometimes forget those two, which I shouldn't, because Mariah Mitchell was my cousin. Continuing education for commissioners from the Massachusetts Historical Commission. Thank you, Angus, for putting that in the packet. I took that directly from Jen Doherty, our CLG local government coordinator at MHC. She sends those out periodically, and I usually try to send those out to you. She's pretty good about having that information available on their website as well. But I wanted to make it into a PDF to make it a little bit easier to access, because I remember last time I forwarded it didn't do so well. So continuing education, and then any preservation planning initiative that the town, whether it's through town administration or even plus or select board, sees as necessary. I think that's important because that is part of your charge as well. So those were my recommendations for a work plan for 2023.
Thank you, Holly. Maybe that list you could just distribute to everyone. But a number of us were like scratching things down, but it might be helpful just to forward.
May I ask a question?
Please go ahead, Georgia.
I was scribbling things down, so maybe I missed this. Holly, did you have in there the participation in any kind of a NARAB education program as we did last spring?
Nope, but thank you for reminding me.
I just think that's hugely helpful in connection with preservation.
Agreed. And we had a lot, I know Hillary can speak to this as well. We had a lot of people and NPT come to us. I've had actually continuous folks in NRAB say we highly enjoyed that. The education was the best. Even realtors who are a little concerned with how other realtors are handling the market and how they're promoting, the sale of a property at this max capacity, so to speak. So it is resonating with them, and I will add that to the list. I do think that's important. And if NRAB is willing to have us engaged again, I'm all for it.
Angus, yeah, I'd like to, I know it's further down on our agenda, but I'd also like to add to that list to keep on to monitor our lighthouses, Great Point Light and Brent Point Light, to see what we can do to further their restoration.
I agree.
Thank you.
I agree. Angus, maybe
I
we
agree
should
too.
make that something about like ensuring we continue to engage with our like federal partners on that, because that's the Coast Guard and
Yeah.
like making sure that one, because to your point, Clement, we don't want that one to kind of drop off. But maybe we make sure that we also just kind of like have an ongoing cadence of how we're engaging with them, so they know we're not gonna go away, if you will.
Thank you for that, Abby. You're reminding me, I think Holly has been our point person for communication with them. And I hope that continues. And if there's any further support that we can do individually or, as a group, please let us know.
Absolutely. I think I mentioned at the last meeting that they reached out to me. They've scheduled a meeting with me and then they had to cancel and then they scheduled again. So I do have a meeting scheduled with them soon, I think within the next 2 weeks.
Great.
So I will have something tangible to bring back to you all. So yeah, good stuff.
Sounds good. David?
Muted. So, thank you. One topic that is kind of ongoing, that's kind of a hot button issue on Nantucket, is the short-term rentals. And I know that we had a while back when the articles were proposed, that we decided as a commission not to comment. I have heard members of the select board mention preservation hand in hand with the short-term rental regulation. And I wonder if this commission would be interested in having a conversation.
I would imagine so. What does the commission say?
I think it sounds like a good idea, especially it sounded like from David Iverson earlier saying that they're like any information we can provide them. So it sounds like they would obviously be open to us engaging. So I think it would be good for us to kind of figure out like, David, we should have a discussion, then figure out if we want to take a position and then like what we could provide to them if we have resources, things like that. But I mean, I definitely think it sounds like it's a good idea. We want to be a part of the conversation as opposed to not.
Anyone else?
I'm not sure what form that kind of input would take. I agree that it's helpful, but I'm not sure how it would work. There was a recent meeting of the short-term rental working group. They broke out into smaller groups. I don't know if they plan to do that again or how one would propose to offer any kind of information, but it's certainly worth making a presentation about the extent to which preservation is affected by short-term rentals. I haven't thought that through myself.
I see.
Yeah, I agree with Georgia. I'm not sure about that, but something we should continue monitoring. Yeah.
Thanks, Clement. I see David Erickson's hand up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think, again, I'm speaking for myself and not for the board, but I think what would be most helpful is if you all would outline your concerns and how, and with that outlining your concerns, help us understand in the work group how STRs affect that certain concern on each point. And I think that would be helpful to the group, to be honest. I mean, I think and to communicate would probably be best to communicate with Megan, and she would forward it on to the head of our group, who is Stacy Smith at CMO.
Thanks for that, David.
I have a question about that. What would the time frame be? Because I'm just thinking about, you can't do it offline and it's kind of a big topic. This group would probably want to collect some information, put it together in a letter that would need a discussion. When do you need it? When does the group need it, Dave?
So right now we're hoping to have the data from NARAB by February. So I think that if you guys could get your concerns to us in whatever format you wish by then, I think then the group would have plenty of time to add it into the discussion. And again, my opinion, I think you're best, bouncing this off of Megan or contacting Stacy.
Thanks,
Mr.
David.
Chair, if I may, I will reach out to Megan as your staff liaison and find out.
Great, but it sounds like we could put something together, if only a statement or something, and review it at our January meeting.
I think that
Would-
sounds like a good idea, Angus, like maybe we just have the quick outline, we discuss it, see if there's anything we want to add, and that way, if we either approve it in January, it'll definitely be ready for February.
Georgia?
In reading something in the Inky Mirror from last summer, I just came across the fact that 5 Surfside, which we just talked about, is owned by a group, an off-island owner that owns buildings for the purpose of short-term rentals. So there's a direct connection between an historic property, which is being renovated for the purpose of use, renting to short-term rental tenants. And it's interesting because we were talking about they're raising that was another, I mean, it struck me that raising the basement and making the basement livable would only be something one would want to do if one wanted to increase the number of people that could stay in a house, right? Which is why I was questioning how much higher the house was going to be. So the main house is not going to be higher, but the basement is going to be livable. And then to find out that it's owned by an off-island corporation that has 9 properties on Nantucket that are rented for on a short-term basis. So I think it's a very interesting intersection. I happen to be one of those people that has strong negative opinions about short-term rentals, meaning in my case, I mean, in my mind, short-term rentals being less than a week. I'm not talking about a week or 2 weeks or a month, even 30 to 28 days. I'm talking about really short-term rentals, like 5 or 6 days. And it seems to me that it's interesting that there's the intersection we were just talking about, a historic property and a short-term rental.
Well, thank you for pointing that out. And that intersection definitely is happening. There is a crossroads of preservation and short-term rentals. And thank you for bringing it up, David.
Necessarily bad.
Hillary?
Angus, sorry, I wanted to contribute something to the discussion about the goals. So one of the things that I found to be extremely helpful in getting things done along a plan of goals was, instead of having a whole bunch of sort of broad thematic priorities, just have a couple kind of really big goals and then set achievable benchmarks that are really specific. Can I share my screen?
Help yourself.
Thanks. This is, I just want to remind, you guys have all seen this before. This is what we did in 2021. So we had these 2 goals that everybody agreed: increase protection of historic resources by town administration, all elected leaders, and increase support for preservation among key associations. Those happen to be the goals. And then we had like these benchmarks along the line. And that's how we identified, for instance, the fall NAREB class, which was something really specific that was achievable. But it took kind of having a theme, and then it took, like, I mean, David Silver worked on this with me. Like we kind of hammered away, and we had to, like, it wasn't obvious at the beginning is what I'm saying. And it was because we started at a very high level and then drilled down to something really specific that we were able to achieve it. And we had another goal of conceiving of one initiative to connect Nantucket communities of color with historic preservation. And we settled on the Arthur Cooper Memorial because that presented itself as something achievable. Anyway, this might be something to take Holly's list and kind of expand it both up and then down into more specifics, to put up something for a set of ideas that you could actually at the end of the fiscal year say, wow, we did all of this.
I think that's a really important tool, and I miss seeing that It's been a while. So I would love to see that pulled back out. So maybe we can take the list, and David, if you can help with
I can help David. I do a lot of project management work and we do RAG status and things like that. So David, I can help you come up with a template if that's helpful.
Let's do it.
Okay, we'll set up time.
that.
Yeah,
Sounds
I
good.
mean, I can send you the template that we have. You can use the same one. It's useful.
Thank
Thank
you.
you,
Belinda.
Hillary. Unless anyone has anything else, I think we can.
Oh, well, I just wanted to add too, Angus, the whole idea of salvaging demolished buildings and pieces of historic importance and trying to get them recycled somehow. So I don't know how that fits into the work plan, but I hope we could be helpful with that. I know the WPI did a thing on that and other people are looking into it as well, but keep it on our list somewhere. Thanks.
PT's been working really hard on that. They've been a big leader.
Definitely,
Yes.
David.
Yeah, one last thing. I really liked seeing the list that Hillary just put up, and it reminded me that projects engaging minority groups on this island, I think, is something that this commission should still, I think, include in its goals. And so I'll throw that at the end of the list that I've jotted down, but wanted to hear if any other commissioners were supportive of that and if there were any ideas floating around.
I
Definitely.
think that's a great idea.
Thank you for bringing that up. Mr. Chair, on that point, that might be something to really look into, just because as a CLG, as the local CLG coordinator, I receive emails from the National Park Service. It's about this, it's about that, blah, blah. But there's grants funding for all different aspects that I think would be very helpful in the minority community. They're really engaging that, and there is underprivileged history on Nantucket that really hasn't been brought out to the forefront. And I think that will even play a role, double dip, if you will, into our surveying effort for certain areas on Nantucket. It is just a level that I've been thinking about. So I think it's a great thing.
And thank you for bringing up the CLG. I think we were a lot more motivated to have regular meetings with the HDC than they are. But as the coordinator for both of us, Holly, maybe you could give us an update of when our next meeting would be and where our MOU stands and kind of where things left. I think we had hopes once we became a CLG that we would have somewhat regular meetings.
Yeah, I also think that we were hoping that this historic district would be as busy as they are, but COVID happened. So we're good standing right now. As you all remember, the CLG MOU that we have with the Massachusetts Historical Commission requires just one yearly meeting, which is within the fiscal year, not calendar year. So we're good on that right now. We have up until June of next year to have our next regularly scheduled yearly meeting. So that would be something that obviously both commissions would have to agree upon what works good for them. Obviously, I would respectfully request this commission to be a little more lenient on that, with the HDC really kind of picking up what works for them. But yes. And then we could bring up the proposed MOU that's outside of the scope of the CLG internal, if you will, up again, but we're good right now. I don't know, I know I sent it to both the chairs of both commissions, Angus, you and Ray. And I also sent it to town admin, but as you all may be aware, one of the requirements of the CLG is to submit to MHC an annual report. Everything from, how many historic tax credit applications you all review from the NHL perspective. Because remember, we don't do any national register nomination, to how many COAs did the HDC review, to our commissioners and any of our new commissioners and their information. So I had to compile a lot of stuff. when I got, then I get a final checkbox, if you will, status from the state. And we're in fantastic standing. They're very, very happy with what Nantucket's been doing and what we can continue to do. So from a CLG perspective, we're in good standing, which is good. So thank you.
Good.
No, I just want, well, you know what, never mind, forget it, sorry.
Any other comments before the end of the year is up?
Okay, one more comment.
Georgia.
I just wanted to say, I wanted to thank Holly. I think Holly has such a tough job managing all of us. It's like herding cats between herding this commission, herding the HDC, managing her boss, and managing planning in general. And I think you have a great deal of equanimity, Holly, and good luck with all that. And thanks for all that. I hope you have a great Christmas and a great New Year.
I
Thank you very much.
Second
Thank
that.
you.
Many hats you're wearing, Holly.
Yes, thank you.
And also, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, Happy Hanukkah to everybody else too.
You know,
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Happy holidays, everybody.
Happy holidays. I can't believe it's the end of the year. Like, where did it go?
I know. All right, I'll take a motion for adjourning.
I move we adjourn.
Second.
All in favor, Mickey,
Aye.
Clement,
Aye.
Georgia? So, I didn't hear you, Georgia, but I think you're
Oh,
probably.
sorry, I didn't hear my name.
Abby,
Hi.
David.
Aye.
All right. Thank you all for meeting and look forward to the work we'll continue in the next year. Thank you for joining Rita and Hillary. And
Thank you. Merry Christmas, everybody. Happy New Year.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye.
take care.
Thank
everyone.
you, Angus.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.